Are you a homesteader raising meat for your family? Are you a farmer looking to raise chickens for a profit? Maybe you're a mix of both. You're making meat for yourself and your family, but you'd also like to make a little profit on the side. Well, this video today is going to help you do that. We're going to talk about raising broilers. This is going to be a three-part series. The first part's going to focus on brooding, as you can see these little guys behind me back here. And then the second and third part to follow will be on management out in the pasture, and then we'll go over loading and getting them ready for market. All right, let's get into it. If this is your first time, welcome back if you've been here before. I'm Jason with Long Bottom Farm. We're a small family farm that raises beef, pork, chicken, and we also do eggs. And we're sharing what we do as a small family farm. We've been raising meat birds now for about 4 years, and we wanted to share with you how we do this process. So again, this will be three parts, and this one's going to focus on brooder management. As you can see, these little guys back here hanging out in their brooder, almost ready to come out on pasture. This video is going to be great for beginners, and hopefully it'll also be, if you're experienced and you're already doing chickens, maybe you'll see something here that helps you with your operation. We started raising chicks basically to provide food for ourselves. We didn't really trust what we were getting in the stores. The labels are so misleading, so we figured we'd do it ourselves. So we started out with about 50 birds. We now do between 400 and 600 a year, typically in 100 bird batches. If you are raising meat birds yourself and you see some things in this video you think we can improve, definitely leave some comments below. We're hoping to share what we do with others, but we're also hoping to learn from others that have figured out things we haven't. All right, let's get started. So part one, we're going to talk about where to purchase your chicks. You can get these from a number of places. We get ours from a company called Myers Poultry in Pennsylvania. They raise the chicks out and ship them to us through the mail. Yep, you heard that right, through the mail. Now, no, they're not in my mailbox, but they will be shipped through the United States Postal Service. They will arrive at your post office, and then your postmaster will give you a call and let you know that your birds have arrived. This is typically a 2-day process, meaning the birds are hatched and then they're at your post office within 2 days, occasionally 3. I recommend, if you are ordering online and having birds shipped to you, try to find somewhere close. That just helps with that 1 to 2 day period. Baby chicks can actually survive for about up to 3 days. The chicks are still digesting the yolk sacs from the eggs, and that's how they're able to survive the trip without any issue. So the post office has been working with local hatcheries to ship birds for over 100 years. So this is not a new thing. Believe it or not, they even ship bees and I think scorpions. Yeah, scorpions. No thanks. We tend to pay somewhere around $1.20 to $1.50 per chick, and then there's usually a shipping charge of around $20 per 100 birds. We've been using Myers Poultry for years, and we've always been very satisfied with the chicks that we've gotten from them. I think we had one occasion where we had a number not survive the trip, and they replaced all the birds for us for free. There are a ton of hatcheries throughout the United States, so really just Google online. You'll find hatcheries that will ship to you. So some other places you can also get chicks from are local ag stores. I know here in Virginia, Tractor Supply, during the warmer months, always has baby chicks that you can get for eggs or for meat. There's local co-ops that will have chicks. There's also local homesteaders and local farmers that actually will hatch chicks. If you look around Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, you can find these as well. So there's a number of different options. So just check around in your area, see what's there, and I'm sure you'll find what you're looking for. We do the Cornish Cross is the breed that we do. There are other breeds such as the Freedom Ranger, who a lot of homesteads and farms will also use. From a production standpoint, we found the Cornish Cross, they finish out in about 8 weeks and produce a lot of meat. The Freedom Rangers do amazing as well. They tend to forage more. They take usually about 3 to 4 more weeks to grow out. So anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks to get processing weight. This also applies for layer birds. If you want specific breeds of layers for your farm, you can also order them from these hatcheries, and they will ship them to you as well. They usually have a minimum number of around 15 or so, but if you're looking to get some of those rare breeds, this is the way to do it. One option that you'll have when purchasing your birds is whether or not you want your birds vaccinated. Since COVID, that's been a heated topic, and you do have some people that feel really strongly one way or another. We do vaccinate our chicks against coccidiosis. That's an intestinal disease caused by parasites. Parasites can multiply inside the chicken's intestines, and that leads to inflammation, and then pretty much the chickens aren't able to absorb the nutrients that they need to survive.
More than I wanted to know.
We've never actually had any problems with coccidiosis on the farm, but we do a fair number of birds rotate through this brooder. We clean it out in between each session. We put diatomaceous earth down and do a number of things, but feel that this is something, because of the volume of birds that we do through here, that's necessary for our birds. Again, this isn't something you have to get, and it's something you can make a choice on. There's also vaccines for Marek's disease, which is a highly contagious viral infection that affects chicks. It's actually caused by a herpes virus that can spread rapidly between birds through their feathers, dust, saliva, different things. Chickens essentially develop tumors in their nervous system, and that can happen anywhere and cause a variety of symptoms from eyesight loss to paralysis. We've never had a problem with that. This is one that we don't vaccinate for, as I've never had any issues from the hatchery that we get these birds, and I do know that if I have an issue that they'll make it right. There's many other vaccines and stuff you can get. I do want to comment a minute on the mRNA vaccine. I've been getting a lot of emails about an mRNA vaccine for animals. This is something that I'm not aware is on the market yet. Regardless, it's not something that we use on our farm, and it's not something we plan to use. When we approach treating our animals on our farm for things, it's because they need it. We want to take the best care we can of our animals and do it in the most natural way possible. But sometimes raising 100 chicks all together, even though we do it regeneratively on pasture, it's not the most natural thing. So there are some steps you still have to take to prevent disease from spreading. Weigh the risk and benefits yourself and see if that's something that you think is a fit for your farm. All right, let's move into part 2 of this, which is chick feed. Undoubtedly, the old adage, you are what you eat, extends to chickens that you're raising for meat. And I think Joel Salatin took it a step further in that you are what you eat, but you are what you eat eats. So whatever animals are eating and you're eating that animal, that's what you're getting. So what you feed your chicks is a crucial step in brooder management, and it sets the foundation for the growth and health of the chicks into chickens. Let's delve a little bit deeper into this. The type of feed we use is sunrise feed. It's a mash of corn, soy, a number of vitamins, minerals. It's a non-GMO mix, especially they make it here in Virginia, and we use what's called a chick starter version, so it's formulated for baby chicks. Specifically, it's mashed up really well so that the birds are able to digest it better. I talked about in my previous video about our egg layers, how they need grit and different things to crush up the feed that they get, and that's because it's a little bit thicker, a little bit coarser. This is already kind of pre-crushed, so the birds are just able to absorb the minerals, the vitamins, and everything that they need from it without having to use grit. This feed, as I said, it's non-GMO. Of course, it's antibiotic free. It used to be a thing where you could buy medicated feed like Tractor Supply and stuff. I don't know if that's a thing anymore. I wouldn't recommend it. I believe antibiotics should be used if you need to treat a sick animal, not to give a healthy animal to prevent it from getting sick. That's how resistant bacteria arise, and it's a big problem in the world today. So I would advise you to avoid medicated feed. Use a good organic feed if you can find it, otherwise non-GMO, and save the antibiotics for if you actually have a sick bird that you might need to treat. Nutrition is one of the most important things for baby chicks, and it also sets the stage for how that bird's going to develop. If you mess up brooder management or feeding in the beginning, then it's going to follow that bird until the bird's ready to be processed. You're going to have smaller birds. You're not going to have as healthy birds. So brooder management, and especially the nutrition in that brooding stage, is super important. So providing a good feed for your chicks promotes a healthy chick. In their formative days, baby chicks require a balanced diet of proteins, fats, carbohydrates. This balanced diet serves as the building block and fuels their growth, stimulating their bones and promoting their muscular development. Good nutrition doesn't just aid in growth, but it's also a powerhouse for the chick's immune system. The right nutrients help the chicks ward off infections and disease, and basically just set the stage for a more healthy, resilient life. Without a well-fortified immune system, chicks can fall prey to a number of different nutritional deficiency diseases that will not only stunt their growth, but can also cause you to have increased mortality. So it's something that's super important to pay attention to. When these nutrients within the feed are supplied adequately, the chicks thrive and grow into healthy, productive chickens. Adequate nutrition also helps with feather development. That's something very important if you're doing broilers in the setting that we're doing them, which is a movable chicken tractor, because they need to be able to keep themselves warm should the weather conditions change, and also keep themselves dry. A chicken's feather has an insulating factor to it. Adequate protein along with other nutrients, are vital for developing strong, healthy, vibrant feathers. You notice that your chicken's feather development is not good, that might be a sign right there that they're having some nutritional deficiency in something, and just one of the signs to watch out for. Good nutrition also helps to support a healthy digestive system, and this is critical for nutrient absorption. A good balanced diet helps to keep their digestive system in good shape, promoting better absorption of the nutrients that they're taking in turn promoting a healthier, more productive bird. And then we alluded a little bit to it before, but really just good nutrition will have a big effect on the long-term impact of the bird. And unfortunately, it's one of those steps that if you mess up in the beginning, you really can't catch up. Providing them with adequate nutrition is not just about meeting their immediate needs, but it's about setting them up on a path to become productive, thriving chickens. As I said, messing up this phase can have repercussions that follow the chicken into adulthood, affecting their ability to become healthy, productive birds. So in conclusion on feeding, right from day one, every meal counts, every nutrient counts. And what you feed your chickens today will determine their health tomorrow. So some things to look for when choosing a chicken feed. One is your protein content. Baby chicks need a higher protein level than adult chicks, and typically that's around 18 to 20%. So look for feeds that are specifically formulated for baby chicks and have around that 18 to 20% protein ratio. In addition to the protein, the chickens should also have an adequate mix of carbohydrates, fats, as well as vitamins and minerals to support healthy growth. I recommend not getting any medicated feed, or even some feed will have antiparasitics in it, and I don't recommend that. If they have parasites, okay, treat it, but if you don't see them, it's not something that I recommend giving just to prevent it from happening. Definitely look on your bag to make sure they have supplements. Most of the feeds will come with some kind of probiotic that helps to promote a healthy digestive system. So look for that as well when you're picking out your feed. Some things to look for to avoid in your feed. One is feather meal. There's some places that will actually process the feathers and use that as a protein source, and that's not recommended, and most likely won't provide complete nutrition. You also want, if you're using soybean in your feed, to make sure they're whole soybeans or ground. Don't do soybean hulls. Sometimes they're used in feed, and again, the hulls themselves do not provide complete nutrition, as well as they can also be difficult for the chicks to digest. Corn gluten versus just corn is also something that is kind of a red flag if you see that in your feed. It's also low in protein and can also be difficult for the chicks to digest. And just keep an eye out for other byproducts that would indicate a lower quality feed. Really, you want to see whole grains in there. You want to see whole corns, whole soys, and hopefully that's ground up, but that's what you're looking for, is whole grain. And try to avoid feeds that have all these fillers in them. To grit or not to grit, some people do use grit with their baby chicks. We don't. The feed that's formulated for baby chicks is already very finely ground, and our birds have grown out beautifully with it. We haven't seen any issues. So I think that's a choice up to you. In our context and what we're doing, we haven't had to use it. Electrolytes is another question. A lot of times with day-old birds, there are options to add electrolytes to their water. This does help. What you need to be careful for, though, is the source of the electrolytes. A lot of the powder electrolytes that are made for chicks that you get are actually salt-based, and that can actually increase the salts within the chick, and that can cause a change in absorption of the kidneys, which we found leads to something called pasty butt. They become a little bit more dehydrated, therefore their poop is thicker and it covers their vent and can actually get hard where they can't poop or pee from their vent. And so what we recommend is some apple cider vinegar is great, a little bit of honey, or just regular table sugar. A lot of these will provide the boost that a baby chick needs in the first few days. I would try to avoid any electrolytes that are salt-based electrolytes, as while the electrolytes may be a little benefit, I believe it can also be a detriment to the chick's health in the first few days. All right, let's move on to actually brooding the chicks. And what does that mean? Basically, brooding the chicks means you're giving them a warm, safe environment to grow over their first couple weeks of life. The Cornish cross that we raise are typically about 3 weeks, and they're ready to go out into the pasture. Some of your layer birds will typically take probably around 6 weeks or so as they feather out a little more slowly. Essentially, that's what you're looking for, is a bird to feather out. Once they've got them feathers, they can insulate themselves, keep themselves warm, and be productive birds out on the pasture. The brooder box is typically just a safe place that you brood the birds in. If you look behind me here, this is our brooder box. This was our very first chicken mobile. It's built on a trailer. We used to pull it around the farm. We had about 50 birds that we started with. And since then, we have grown to about 200 birds and had to retire it, but we were able to park it in a nice place. And now it is the brooder for our baby chicks. You don't have to have anything near this big. You can get small water troughs from Tractor Supply. You can go to Walmart and buy the little tote bins, storage bins. You can pretty much use just any safe environment will work. Obviously, it depends on how many birds you're doing as to how big that environment needs to be. Again, we chose this just because it was retired and we didn't have another use for it, so that's what it became. But again, water troughs, storage totes. Seen people cut trash cans in half and down in the trash can. You can actually use a cardboard box. Will work fine as long as you keep something absorbent on the bottom. We keep it lined with pine shavings, or what we use. You can use straw. Some people use peat moss. They need to have a bedding in there that helps to absorb all their waste. That bedding then can in turn be put in a compost pile and then later used for great soil to amend your garden, flower beds, or other areas around your farm or homestead. You do want to make sure that your brooder is free of drafts. I've got the doors open right here because it's about 90 degrees out here right now. So I think this draft is probably helping them a little bit. And they're fairly feathered out. These are about 2.5-week-old birds now, and they'll be coming out here in about 3 or 4 days out into their mobile tractors onto the pasture. So you just want to make sure that your brooder is free of drafts that could cause cold stress to the birds in the first few days to the first week or two of life. Heat lamps are very important in the first few weeks of life. Baby birds don't have their feathers yet. It's more of a down, and so they need help regulating their body temperature. So we typically hang, you can probably see a few heat lamps hanging here behind me, and we'll hang them, cut them on. The birds can move in if they need to, or they'll move out if they're too hot. So whenever you're setting up a heat lamp anywhere in your brooder area, just make sure they have room to get out from underneath it if they need to. And depending on how many birds you have, that it's enough heat to heat all the birds. I also recommend having at least one extra light wherever you're doing this, and that's just in case a bulb goes out, then you have another one going. The old 2 is 1, 1 is none adage. Some signs you'll see if they're all under the heat light, it means it's probably too cold and you either need to drop down the light or add more light, or make sure there's no drafts. If you notice that they're all spread away from the light, that probably means it's too hot. Then you either want to raise the light, or if you're running multiple lights, cut off 1 or 2 of them. The temperature in the brooder box should be monitored accordingly. The lights are going to affect this and are essentially what controls the temperature inside your brooder. The general rule of thumb is about 90 to 95 degrees at the level of the wood chips or whatever surface you have for the first week. And then after that, you typically start stepping it down every couple days by around 5 degrees. This is going to depend dramatically on what environment you're in. I'm in Virginia and it's 90 degrees right now, so we were able to wean the lights within the first week. If you're in Alaska or a different state, your climate's going to be different, so then you'll want to watch the temperature and watch the birds. Again, if they're all huddling under the lights, that means they need more heat, and you'd want to keep it. If they're constantly staying out of the lights, no matter where you put it, then they're getting too hot, and that's an indication that you don't need it. So there's a lot of general rules of thumb out there, and most of them are good, but I recommend just looking at your birds. See what your birds are doing. They will tell you what they need by how they're acting, their behavior. So pay attention to that, and that'll help guide you in what to do with your heat lamps and regulating your temperature. As far as food and water, we talked about the food a little bit, but chicks should have access to clean food and water at all times. Here in our brooder, we change everything out about twice a day. We get here early in the morning, make sure feeders are full, get chicks, if you're using wood chips, they will kick chips into the water. So you just want to make sure that that's clean, and we check that twice a day, once in the morning and then once in the afternoon, just to make sure they have adequate supply of clean water and clean feed. The brooding area itself should be kept clean. Obviously the birds are going to pee, poop, do their business in there. That's what the wood chips are for, but eventually those wood chips will become saturated. And you have 2 options. One, you can change them out if you want. What we recommend is while the birds are still in there, you just keep adding bedding. It's called a deep bedding system. You add new shavings over the old ones, and then those will continue to absorb, and we'll kind of just keep going up from there until you move them out on pasture, move them wherever you're going to move them. At that point, then you can clean it out and get it ready for your next batch. Also, the shavings that you take out make wonderful compost. They're saturated with high nitrogen waste, and put that in your compost pile, give it 6 months or so, and then it makes great amendments for your garden, around your house, flower beds, and it's almost like a little bonus that you get from the chicks. As far as setting up your brooder size-wise, You want at least a half to 1 square foot per bird in your brooder. This ensures that they have enough adequate room to move around, that they're not too cramped, and sets them up to become healthy, productive birds. Ventilation is a big factor when setting up your brooder. Again, we talked about drafts. You want to avoid drafts, but you do need to have ventilation, and that's a little different. Not necessarily wind blowing on the birds, but somewhere that fresh air can come in and contaminated air, hot air, dust can go out. Just like you and I, chickens breathe air, and they need clean air to breathe. So it's very important to have good ventilation. If you're in a box, that may just mean leaving the top open. If you're in a brooder like this, you can probably see on the sides, we have windows that pop up that have a grate over it on each side, and that allows over top of the birds for good airflow. This will also help with the buildup of harmful gases, one of them being ammonia. That's a strong component in chicken waste. And if you're not addressing your bedding adequately, that ammonia can build up and can be fatal for the birds. That's kind of a warning sign. You should be putting down more bedding and stuff before it ever gets to that point. But appropriate ventilation also helps to remove any excess harmful gases. When it comes to waters, there's a number of different waters you can use. We use these bell waters. They're Placid bell waters. They're automatic bell waters that are gravity fed from another source, in our case, a 5-gallon bucket. We just fill the 5-gallon bucket, and then it has a tube coming from the 5-gallon bucket that attaches to these, and it's a weight system so that if it's full of water, then it stops filling. And we found these work great for the baby birds. Again, they still get some wood chips in them, so you have to clean them out every now and then, but they work perfect, and we've had no issues with them. We love them. There's other options. There's jars. You just fill up the jar with water, turn it over, and that will keep water full. I usually recommend, if you're going to use one of those, maybe put a couple bricks in and set it on bricks. You can usually do this after the first couple days. First couple days, they need to be at low level so the baby chicks can get to it. There's also nipples. I've never used nipples in a brooding system. I don't know if people do or not. In my experience, they've dripped a lot, so I feel like I waste a lot of water. And then that also means I have to change wood chips more frequently. And two, I'm not sure that they get an adequate amount out. I feel just having an open source of water lets them also clean their beaks as well as get what they need. So that's what we go with. As far as our feeders, we have a variety of different feeders. Most of them consist of a bucket that hangs with a tray on the bottom, and you put feed in the bucket, and as they eat out of the tray, the feed drops down. There are also plastic feeders with little holes. These work good as well for the first 2 days, but I find that these get clogged with wood chips too much, so we typically don't use them. And I found that just these bucket tray systems work great. They also hold a lot of feed, making the amount of time I have to fill feeds and clean feeders much less and much more efficient. Again, there's a variety out there. You can look at your ag supply store, look online, and find something that fits your context. Obviously, in this brooder, there's a lot of space, so I can put these big feeders in here. If you're using something smaller, like a storage tote or a box, then definitely the plastic ones with the holes or just the little feeders will be perfect for that. So again, it all comes down to context and what your context is, what your environment is, and how you're doing your baby chicks. The main important thing is just make sure that whatever you use is providing access to clean food and water continuously. Some things that we watch out for when we have our brooder set up is, one, I talked about pasty butt. That's where the chicks' vents can get covered with poop. Again, this can be cleaned with just warm water and you have to rub it. It's a lot of work. I feel that adding a little bit of apple cider vinegar to their initial water and then making sure they have good access to clean water really helps. I've seen some people recommend yogurt in the first day or so and different things to help with that. Again, I recommend against using the electrolytes that are salt-based because I believe that they contribute to that to a degree, to the pasty butt, so avoid those. But that's something to watch out for in your brooder. Typically, when we first get the birds in, we'll dip their beaks in water just so they know where their water is. And then you'll watch and see they will sit there and drink the water. So I believe it's a good practice to do. I don't know that everybody does it. I think some people will just let them go and they will find it. It's just something we've always done and I haven't seen any harm from it. And I'm the kind of person that if something's not broke, I'm not going to try to fix it. Just to touch on real quick some illnesses that you might want to watch for your birds. We talked initially about coccidiosis and Merrick's. But as far as watching for signs that your birds may show you, lethargy and weakness can be something you can see in the birds. This can be an indication of a number of conditions, from bacterial to viral to parasitic like coccidiosis, even nutritional deficiencies. So if you're seeing lethargic birds, you just want to make sure your feed's good, make sure your water's clean, Make sure we're put in a clean environment, and hopefully just double checking all that stuff may lead you to find that either something's deficient or something needs changing. If you see your chicks with just poor appetite or they're not drinking very much, that can be a sign of a digestive problem. But again, that can also be a bacterial, viral, or parasitic infection. Again, any birds that you see acting lethargic, acting sick, not drinking, not doing what they're supposed to do, we recommend that you isolate them. Meaning take them out of your brooder, set up another semi-brooding area with heat, water, food, but that they're separate from the rest of the flock. What you don't want is, if this is something viral, for it to go around to the rest of your flock. A lot of times just isolating this bird, it could have been something that came from where you got the bird from. So it's just always, with any animals really, if you see an animal acting strange, isolate it and get it away from the rest of the other animals. If you hear abnormal vocalizations or sneezing or coughing, that's often a sign of a respiratory infection, such as mycoplasmosis, bronchitis. In most cases, it's a supportive care. Some of those can be treated with antibiotics. The main thing is that have good ventilation within your brooder. Again, letting dust get out and harmful gases helps a lot with that. Most of these chicks, for the most part, if you give them the proper environment, they will do well. So a lot of times these diseases, these different things, while they can be problems from the hatchery or from where you got your birds, sometimes they can be just indicators that something needs to be changed with the system, meaning something with the food, something with the water, something with the brooder itself. If you see visible injuries, such as bleeding, you definitely need to isolate those chicks. The other chickens, when they see red, they go for it. And they will, if a chick has a small wound, they will turn it into a large wound. So definitely, if any chick is injured or open wounds, you definitely want to isolate them from the rest of the flock. Treat the wound, and then once everything's good, you can return them back. Again, we don't use any antibiotics typically in our animals. If they do get sick and we think it's a bacterial infection, we will get the vet out, and if they agree, then we will use antibiotics. Those animals, though, are then taken out of our production, meaning we'll sell them either to a larger operation or somebody that antibiotics doesn't affect what they're doing. Again, all the products that we sell to our customers are antibiotic free, but that doesn't mean that we're going to let an animal die because we're not going to give them antibiotics. So that's how we address it. Maybe if you're a farm that's dealing with this issue, your customers want antibiotic-free, chemical-free food. And the way we do that is we do treat our animals if they need it, but then those animals that get treated get taken out of any production model that we have and are sold to either other farms, other operations that don't mind the antibiotics. That way our customers still get the antibiotic-free food, and yet we've done our jobs as good stewards of taking care of the animals. Again, I'm not a believer in letting the animal die just because I'm not going to give antibiotics. I don't believe that's a good approach. And it's our job as farmers, though we're raising these animals for food, is to give them a good life. It's what separates us from the commercial operation, that these animals have a great life and they have one bad moment. That's basically it for brooder management and starting baby chicks off to becoming healthy chickens and productive chickens for your farm, homestead, or farmstead. We've talked about where to buy, and again, that's online hatcheries, local ag stores, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or just check with other local farms. We've talked about starter feed water. We've talked about the whole brooder setup and some important aspects of that setup. And we've talked about signs of distress and things to watch for with your birds. In the next part of this video, we'll be talking about managing the chicks out on pasture. We'll show you our mobile chicken tractors that we use. We'll go over that whole setup system. And then in part 3, we'll go over getting them ready to go to the processor, how we prepare them, the loading process, and basically finishing them out. So if you guys got any value of this, if you give us a like or a subscription, that really helps. It helps the channel grow. And it also tells YouTube whatever we're doing, people like to watch, and so they'll put it out there more. We're a small family farm, and again, we're just sharing what we're doing and hope that that helps some farmers. And in turn, we hope that some farmers comment below. We'll see some of the stuff we're doing and say, hey, I think I can help you do that better, and give us suggestions on things that we could do better. So stay tuned, guys. We've got the chicken videos coming up, but we've got a whole lot more coming up as well. Basically showing you, again, how me and my wife run our small family farm, no employees, and how we're trying to make this work. All right. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you got some value out of this, and we'll catch you in the next one. All right. Bye.